3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point, you realized you were married into crazy.
And that's what our podcast is all about. We offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as we unpack this crazy thing called marriage.
So sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
All right, let's go.
Hey Ernie, so I just wanted to jump on really quickly and let you know how much I appreciate you. This morning's consultation went very, very well. The way that you explained my personality type, which is the C, was very informative. It was super straightforward. You were able to lay out everything so that I can understand your tone of voice, your style. Everything was very calming. You're a super easy guy to talk to, and I'm excited to see where my personal and my professional life is going to go after today's consultation. So once again, Ernie, I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to see where we're headed.
Welcome to episode 130 of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
And once again, as always, we welcome you back to a robust conversation between a husband and a wife that tells a story about,
I was like, okay.
No, but look, we've been married for 24 years, and sometimes you got to spice it up. I am generally the more goofy one of the two, even though she says I am not. We've been married 24 plus years. We can say plus now because it's been
24 years and 2 months.
Right. And so I'm a vet. I'm a veteran, y'all. She's not. I am.
Oh, yeah. I was here too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's
get in trouble.
Look, and if you don't know the story, look, we came together on a blind date.
It wasn't a blind date. It was a blind setup.
She wanted to say hookup, but it wasn't a hookup like that.
Because you schooled me in the way of
the hookups.
Well, yeah, the verbiage. It really means.
So
anyway,
we were forced together, and she didn't like me. She told everyone I was a nerd.
I didn't tell everyone.
Which I think is
like some people.
Anyway, she told a lot of people.
I didn't tell a lot of people.
And what was it? 4 months later, we were engaged.
Yes, 4 months later, we were engaged.
And her ex-boyfriend stabbed me.
Yes, he did.
Through the heart. It wasn't Cupid, y'all. It was not like the little cute little flying cherub angel with wings and there was no music. There was a serrated steak knife. And it was an old school steak knife. Remember the ones that your mom used to have with the wooden handle? And I don't even know how we were even able to laugh at this, but it had the wooden handle.
Because it's 25 years later.
Anyway, so he stabbed me through the heart in my chest. The knife went all the way through my heart. Had to have 2 open heart surgeries. And here we are. Just like that. Then we had a few babies.
Yeah. Throw some kids in.
So if you want to hear the whole story, go back and listen to episode 5. Winter is coming. Because that was a frigid winter.
Well, I mean, 1 kind of tells, and then 5 tells the actual story of, that goes in depth a little bit. And then there's collateral damage. I mean, there's so many different parts of the whole story. I don't even think we've really gotten down into every single, probably not. Anyway,
aspect of it. But so this is what it is. So in our 24 plus years of marriage, if you guys have ever seen, there's a comedian called Sam Kinison. If you know Sam Kinison's work, hilarious guy. He passed away a number of years ago. But Sam Kinison used to have this skit where he would go down into hell and he would talk about, the devil was going around scaring everybody like, "Rawr, rawr, rawr," and everybody was getting scared. And then the devil walked up to him and was like, "Oh, I noticed you're not getting scared when I go around and terrorize everyone." And Sam Kinison's response was like, "No, man, I've been married." And he said, "Oh, you've been married. Okay, well, you qualify as a tour guide down here."
Wow.
So
is that what you're trying to say?
I'm not saying I'm a tour. No, not tour guide. But our moniker is Married into Crazy. That's what the podcast is called. That's what our therapy, the sessions that we take people through, the people that we work with. Crazy does stand for an acronym, but being married to this woman, going through meeting on a blind date,
get your hands off me,
getting stabbed, being asked for divorce year 4, her having to deal with a lot of challenges with my family and with me standing up as a man early on in our relationship, dealing with our kids, and just it's just so many things that we've had to, being a blended family to a certain extent, and then dealing with all these different things, it qualifies us to be married into crazy.
Okay. But so I still kind of want to go back to what you were saying
Uh-oh.
about when the guy went down the hill. He was like, "Oh, you qualify for a tour guide." So I asked you, I was like, "Oh, so is that what being married to me is like?" And you're like, "No, no, 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 not a tour guide." So what are you trying to say? You said it's not a tour guide, but
You ever watch? You
apparently,
ever watch the football game?
no. I want to hear what you had to say from your word, from the words coming out of your mouth.
Purely spectator sport. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Wow. Okay.
No,
Okay.
not a tour guide by any means necessary. I'm just saying Sam Kinison said
So
that he
this
qualified
I
as a tour
know,
guide.
but I said, is that what you think about being married to me? And you
Uh,
said, no, not a tour guide. But you didn't address the part about being in hell.
oh, okay, got you.
Oh wow. Now,
Yeah,
Mr. Smart Man. Okay, summa cum
not in
laude.
hell
Now
at
you don't know
all. Maybe
anything.
purgatory, but not hell. No, not at all. Not at
Whatever.
all. No, so we try and have a lot of fun. Look, the thing about Married into Crazy with Snooks and Levy is that we'll always try and bring you love, laughter, and some solutions for overcoming adversity within your relationship, within your marriage, whether you're premarital, whether you're married, whether you're divorced. But our jam is for those people that are really focused on marriage. She like my dance move right
I
there.
was like, well, I didn't know.
Can nobody hear you? If you've been here for the last 2.5 years, you know that there are times where Snooks will sit there and talk away from the microphone, and you can never hear what she's saying.
No, that's because I like to look at my husband when I talk to him, and he gets so bent out of shape that I'm not. He says I'm not talking into the microphone, but I think a lot of times I sound better than you on the microphone.
You sound better than
So,
me. You look better than me. I give
you
that
know
all
what
to
I'm
you.
trying to say.
That's why I am not in hell
I say
by being married to you.
I'm always on the
Being with you,
ones and
baby, is like being
twos.
in heaven. Heaven.
No.
No, I was trying to think of a song, but try and make it up as I go.
I guess.
Hey, so I will say this, that I'm looking forward to eventually getting my second shot for the
Oh,
COVID
for
vaccine.
COVID. Mm.
Yeah, but got my first shot because I'm considered, in that healthcare worker arena, and run a lot of patients and stuff where when I go call on certain accounts. But they gave me the first one and then ran out. And so when I was supposed to get my second shot, they were like, "Oh, that's sorry, we'll call you when we got some more." So I was like, "Well, I could have waited for the Johnson & Johnson one, but hey, whatever."
It's so funny too because I I I work in one of the areas where Levy passes by, and so we got calls sometimes. They're like, "Oh, this clinic is giving free shots. This clinic is doing shots right now." So I'm like calling him, "Where you at? Where you at?" He's like, in the foothills or wherever he is." I was like, "Oh, can you get down here?" He's
Right.
like, "For what?" I said, "So you get your other shot."
It couldn't be like one of those afternoon rendezvous. Afternoon delight. Couldn't be like one of those when you see she gonna call me to go get a shot,
Mm-mm.
but she won't call me. Be like, "Hey, I miss you. I need to see you."
I don't think
That's
you.
in 24 years. I don't think I got one of those phone calls.
Oh, really? When you worked at Home Depot?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
We need an episode on that. Them was fun days.
Anyway,
We lived like down the street from the job.
yeah. And I would take off and I'm like, hey,
Meet me at home at
come
this.
home for lunch.
Okay. And it was like there was no kids coming in.
Ooh,
They were at
yeah.
school, whatever. Man, them were the days.
Those were the days.
But the challenge is that with like, okay, when you got the COVID shot,
Mhm.
how did it make you feel when you got the second one?
So the second one, I felt okay. The first 24 hours, 25, I was like, ooh, Remember, I was like,
The Walking Dead.
I literally, I was, oh, that's a good description because I literally was walking like a zombie.
She was.
I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get warm. I had the chills. I've never had chills like that before in my life. And no matter what, Levy's like, okay, get in the bed. I had the heater on upstairs, the electric blanket. I had socks on. I had my robe on. At some point, I had to get a heating pad But I ended up I had to get up and take a shower, stand under the hot water for like almost an hour, just so that I can ward off some of the chill. And then after I got out of the shower, that's when the fatigue came in. And I was like, wow, this is bananas. Cause literally an hour before that, I was walking around, I was fine. And then it just hit me like a brick, ton of bricks actually. So
It's funny how all those symptoms showed up.
uh,
Okay, so that's a great analogy because this is what I wanted to talk about.
okay.
Was you said that an hour before you felt just fine,
Hmm.
no issues whatsoever, then bam, all of a sudden you had all these symptoms.
Hmm.
So the thing I wanted to talk about was right now our healthcare system, the way things work is we have a tendency to treat symptoms rather than really going after the disease.
Okay.
So if you get like let's say you have GI issues or stomach issues, right? And they're like, oh, I've got acid, I think I've got, heartburn or whatever. Rather than solving the issue, we're going to give you some pills that are going to
Treat the
treat the
symptoms.
symptoms so that way you'd end up having as bad a heartburn rather than stopping the heartburn altogether. Now, the best
Mm.
course of action is always going to be stop doing whatever it is you were doing that caused it. But a lot of times, a lot of our medicine, the way it is here in the Western world, is that we treat symptoms and not the disease itself.
So let me ask a question then. And a thought just occurred to me. So maybe we treat the symptoms because whatever the disease state is, there are a number of symptoms that can be causing it.
Mhm.
So if we start giving, like, okay, I'm going to give you this medicine and this works for these symptoms. So if that works for that medicine works for that symptom, you still have the disease, but you still have some other stuff too. So is giving medicine kind of like, I want to say, knocking off, how do I say this? Like, is like, okay, I can cross that one off, like to try to figure out what exactly is wrong. Cause I feel like a lot of times they
It's like
don't
a process of
necessarily,
elimination.
yeah, that's the words. Those are the words. I'm sorry. But I feel like a lot of times they're kind of guessing, because I can tell you, oh, I feel this. It could be a number of things.
Right.
So,
Well, there's differential analysis or a differential diagnosis where they're supposed to do a process of elimination and knocking out certain things that, like you said, eliminating process of elimination. Okay, well, this we're gonna eliminate this, based on the symptom. We're gonna give you this to eliminate that, and if this doesn't touch that, then we know it's not this particular disease or it's not this particular ailment. But I bring all that up because I think within our relationships we have the exact same scenarios, the exact same situation. Think of instead of disease, think of dis-ease,
okay.
right? The lack of ease for your marriage. So that's why, it's basically disease within marriage. And there's something going on that's not being addressed, but we do have a tendency to deal with the symptoms. Now, before we dive completely in, I just want to say this because we didn't say it at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
And that is, if you enjoy the podcast, whether you're new to the podcast, Married into Crazy, we really want you to go over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening and give a rating. Go ahead and put 5 on it. And like the Loonies will say, put 5 on it. I'm always off tune. And she looks at me crazy. But we want you to put 5 on it. And hey, look, if you are a voice coach, I might need your assistance. But go there and leave a review. And if you really like what we're doing and it helps you and you find it that it's a positive force in your life and you look forward to this, subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe wherever it is that you download it or where you're listening from right now, whether that be YouTube or Spotify, iHeartRadio, any of the others that are out there. So we definitely want you to do that. And we do want you to also join us live on our Married into Crazy communication workshop that we do the last Saturday of every single month. So this month, now that we're in March, it's going to be March 27th from, can you
From 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you get 90 minutes of lovey and snooks.
unmitigated love where you get that love, laughter, and again,
And
some
it's a lot of
tools.
fun, guys. We have a lot of fun when we do the podcast, when we do the workshop. So you don't just sit there and stare at the screen and look at us.
No,
It's interactive.
very
We
interactive. We don't
require
slide with you,
participation.
right? And we will force that participation. No, it's a lot of
No,
fun.
don't
It
force
is. We
it.
have a good time, and you do too. And anyway, so just join us. It's absolutely free. It's a gift from us to you. So please definitely join in. So I wanted to get that. So back to our regular programming.
Hmm. So just how you said the dis-ease of, you know,
Right. The
not
lack of
just
ease. Okay.
disease, but the dis-ease. It's funny because when I looked it up, that's exactly how it's it's spelled out. Dis and then ease.
Oh, okay.
I was like,
You know
oh,
the
okay.
definition?
Yeah, yeah. So this disease, a disorder of structure or function in a human, animal, or plant, especially one that produces specific signs or symptoms or that affects a specific location and is not simply a direct result of physical injury. A particular quality, habit, or disposition regarded as adversely affecting a person or group of people.
Adversely affecting a person or group of people.
Hmm.
So let's distinguish that from symptom. So, a symptom is a physical or mental feature which is regarded as indicating a condition of disease, particularly such a feature that is apparent to the patient.
Hmm.
And I think that last phrase, that last portion of it, that says that particularly such a feature that is apparent to the patient. So the patient being your marriage, the patient being the husband and the wife. And I think that what we do is we have a tendency to pay attention to the symptoms. But there are
Okay.
certain diseases or there are certain ailments, let's call them that show up and that causes a dis-ease within the marriage. We know that the top two reasons for divorce are lack of communication, finances.
Okay.
A lot of people are like, oh, it's infidelity. That is a reason, but that's not like the top ones that really cause 50% of marriages to actually fail. It's really lack of communication that leads to so many other things. And so what we need to do is stop treating the symptoms and really focus on the dis-ease itself, the really the base, the root of the issue. We're so concerned with the fruit that we see that's being born. We need to actually not focus so much on the fruit, but really dig down
At the root.
and get to the root of the issue. So when we talk about communication, so what would you consider to be, so if lack of communication was the disease itself, how would that manifest or show up and be a symptom?
For me, lack of communication, there's just a lot I feel like it would be a lot of chaos. Um, Arguments, we're not communicating. I'm thinking one thing, we're going totally two different ways. We're not in sync. So,
And sometimes lack of communication, there's avoidance of certain issues. There's so many times where what's that old phrase where you sweep it under the rug?
mhm.
So you take these items that you just don't want to deal with because it's just too difficult to deal with, or you think you know how the other person's going to respond. So you sweep it under the rug. And what generally happens is it grows and festers and boils and bubbles, and then until the point where it just explodes. And then 2 years later, well, look at us.
Well, I was about to say, oh, okay, we can do that. Or I was just thinking something a little bit more simple. Like you said, sweeping it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug. And so now when I come inside and I see garbage overflowing, I'm blowing up and I'm just going completely bananas because of the garbage. But in reality, I'm really not that mad. I mean, I don't appreciate the garbage being like that, but I'm not really mad about the garbage. I'm mad about what I swept under the rug 2 years ago that I never said anything to you about. But to me, you should have known better, you know?
Right. That's like the straw that broke the camel's back. Has
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing to do
Mm-hmm.
with the root problem, but it just sets you off.
Right.
And then when you do take a look at like us, when we were facing a divorce in year four, when you asked for it, it's one of those things where it was 4 years worth of things building up. It was a lack of communication. There was a disease between us because you didn't trust me or you didn't think I had your back. And so you didn't talk about certain things. And because the evidence was there that sometimes I would try and appease you, but also appease everybody else around me. And so we had these old issues that would just bubble up.
Mhm.
And you got to ask yourself. So people had advice like, oh, you guys should go on date nights, because we talk about date nights. I think date nights are a great thing.
Right, but how is that helping with my communication? I mean, unless our date night would be us sitting at a table, getting to know each other again, or having a conversation. I mean, because that right there works.
Right.
Not us going to dinner, where I mean, or not dinner. I'm sorry, a movie where we ain't gonna talk anyway. We sitting in a dark room with a whole bunch of strangers. I'm not knocking date night. I love date night, but when there are issues, that date is not going to
Like,
help with the real underlying problem.
right. And I think you bring up a good one too, because date night, it's real easy to say, oh, we're going to go to the movies. We're going to see this. But it's so funny. And I don't want to say guilty. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because if that's your thing, because our thing was going to the movies
I love the movies. I miss the movie.
and we enjoyed it. And like we would hold hands and, all that. But
He'd eat my popcorn.
I would eat her popcorn when I said I wasn't going to eat any popcorn. I would drink her soda, eat her licorice, all that. But it's funny. You just pointed out that, but we made plans to go do something together, and yet we would go and not talk to each other for 2 hours.
Mhm. I say that was so much fun. I mean, well, the movie's fun, but yeah.
Right. We enjoyed the movie, but it wasn't really us connecting. And I think that lack of communication, I think it's going to come up a little bit later, because I think there's other items that we miss out as well. So, like for instance, what if there's a lack of yielding? Because the why is one of those things that's in crazy.
Mhm.
But what if you don't know how to compromise? If you don't know how to really I hate to say give in to the other person.
Well, you have to make adjustments.
There you go.
Um, is it, I don't know, when you say it, give in, that always sounds so negative versus compromise, but it kind of is the same thing. It's just different wording. But we have to learn how to make adjustments. We can't be so, it's this way and that's it. My way, highway, that's it. And then what that does is also, I feel like it puts the other person
Right.
on defense.
Always.
It's like, so you gonna act like that? Okay, I got you.
Oh, like the way. Well, it causes, because the person ends up becoming selfish, because they don't want to see the other person's side, or just getting this. I want to be right.
Mhm.
But you think, okay, well, you guys need to go to counseling, which is good, or get some coaching, which we're always a fan of, seeing as how we are marriage coaches.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things where that selfishness, or not being able to compromise, or not being able to see the other person's side of it, it
You kind of alienate.
there you go. That's what I was looking for.
You alienate the other person, or yourself. You alienate them and ostracize yourself because you when you're selfish or too much selfishness, it's like you're on this island all by yourself. Because number one, who wants to be bothered with someone who's selfish? And I already know, "Oh, I ain't gonna bother with him because it has to be his way." And I'm already thinking negative thoughts when
Right.
I have to deal with this person, and I'm already in my head. I already know how the conversation is going to go. I'm assuming that I know, and I don't even want to deal with that. So I'll just go do me. Or
No, I hear you. Well, there's quite a few different things that
Well,
every relationship's different.
I was going to say, what about trust?
Oh, right. Well, if there's no trust, then there's going to be, if I don't trust you, like if I can't bare my soul to you
Hmm.
because I don't trust you, then there's going to be a lack of vulnerability.
Right.
If I'm not vulnerable, and let's just call it what it is. Most men, I hate to say most, a lot
A
of
lot of
men,
men. Hmm.
a lot of men,
Think
a lot of men
I'll let you say it because you're a guy.
lack vulnerability, because first and foremost, we're not taught to.
Right. Because being vulnerable is perceived as weakness. It's like when you're preparing for something, you know, like remember when we used to do I want to say we used to do it like in volleyball. So they do the warm-ups and stuff like that. There were some coaches who I've seen their top players, they didn't let them get up there and warm up because they didn't want the other team to see what they had. So a lot of times I think we do that with, I don't want you to see what I have. I'm gonna, well, for men,
Oh,
I don't want you guys to, I'm gonna say you guys, I don't want to bare my soul because that means that I'm showing you something and you might have a weapon against me. Does that make sense?
well, you don't want to show any weakness or what perceived weakness. So, but I think the challenge is that for a lot of men is that, hey, you got to suck it up. You got to be a man. Just that phrase alone, be a man. Suck it up. We don't
What
cry.
does that mean?
It just means, there's that bravado where there is no weakness. Men don't cry. All these different things that they throw at you, like sports, you get into a fight or an altercation or what have you. It's like, you need to suck it up. But it's one of those things. But because of that lack of vulnerability, though, I think what's perceived by women more times than not, or your spouse, is that, okay, you're holding back. And if you're holding back, there's just something that's just, it creates an air of distrust. Like, if you're holding back, what else are you holding back?
Mm.
And that's a problem. And the dis-ease is that the lack of ease is the lack of trust leads to less vulnerability. And that less vulnerability is one of the symptoms that shows up where people just think, okay, well, if you're not going to give your all to me and kind of drop the mask or the facade, then I'm not going to give my all to you.
Right.
And then now you have two people that are holding back from each other.
It's almost like I don't know, I look at it like it's a tug of war in a sense. I don't want that line to cross because that means if I show too much vulnerability, you win.
See, I don't think it's tug of war. I think it's more like poker. Like, you're playing cards. I don't want you to see my cards. You don't want me to see your cards. And then
Oh,
what we'll do
okay.
is we'll put the cards down as we play them. But at the end of the day, it's like, I still want to hold some close. That's what they say. You're going to hold your cards close to your
Close to
vest.
hmm
Because you don't want everybody to see them. And that's something that needs to be a challenge. But that problem that bleeds over into another one, which is lack of intimacy.
hmm
If there's no trust, how intimate can you truly be? You know what I mean? I'm not talking about just
I was about to
sex.
say, well, let's define intimacy because for a lot of people, or I won't say a lot, but I know for some people, intimacy is synonymous with sex. And that's not the case. I mean, intimacy is the time we spend together. It's us talking. Pillow talk is intimacy. Sex is sex. Sex is intimacy too, but that's intimacy you can't do in front of other people. You can be intimate in front of people,
Well, depending
because
upon your lifestyle, I guess you could do it in front of other
yeah, I
people,
guess
but
so. But it's when my when we're intimate, that fuels my tank, fills my tank, you know. And so when my tank is full, then the car is going. Hey.
hey, upgrade from a Pinto to a Maserati. No, but it's one of those things where that intimacy needs to be there. But if you have a lack of trust, or the dis-ease, the lack of trust, lack of intimacy, leaves people unfulfilled, right? And there's no connection, and all that's because it's really a challenge with being fearful, because I'm afraid to give myself to you or to show everything. That's why some people have like a very difficult time. I don't want to say this. I'm trying to keep it PG, but they have difficulty with sex. They have challenges with sex in their relationship, which we're going to in our him and her health series that we're going to be doing relatively soon. We plan on having a sex therapist come on as well to talk. But people have, because they're not giving their all. They don't share. They don't trust you enough to tell you what I like and what I don't like, and what to do more of or less of. So you sit there and you just have sex, and your partner thinks that they're pleasing you when they really aren't. And it causes a challenge, right?
Well,
There's the unfulfillment,
in the unfulfillment, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel like the
but you did.
unfulfillment, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The unfulfillment leads to disconnection. Because if I feel like I'm not being fulfilled by you, or you feel like you're not fulfilling me, we will disconnect because now you feel some kind of way about the whole act, and
Exactly.
I feel some kind of way about the whole act. And a lot of people just be like,
But that's how disease works, right? Look at cancer. It spreads.
mm,
it starts to spread.
Bleeds over into other, metastasizes into different areas of your life.
Exactly. And so a lack of communication can metastasize into, your ability to compromise or have adjustments. But more than that, though, the lack of ease with trust, the lack of trust within your relationship will metastasize into a lack of intimacy. And if I'm unfulfilled and I don't feel as if my needs are being met, I'm not going to like having sex. I'm not going to like or even seek to have. I'll come up with excuses, or you just lose that desire to have or seek a connection because you haven't had it for so long. You've done an act, but you haven't had the connection.
Or you just lose the desire to have that with your spouse. You may start going outside
You think there's a
and looking
cure
for,
for your disease, for your dis-ease somewhere else.
with someone else who you think is gonna
And they got a whole other disease
have the
going
whole
on.
have the connection with you.
Well, didn't you say something? There was a doctor that talked about,
Yeah, I was gonna get to that after we talk about
oh,
all the
okay.
other.
Well, the other one was like, well, what about being apologetic? Being able to,
The inability to apologize.
well, the inability to apologize, to accept responsibility for your part in any of these, or your part in whatever.
Well, that leads for me. I can say that leads to big time resentment. Because I feel like when you can't apologize, that means that you really truly, and just my opinion, when you have the inability to apologize, that means you think you're right all the time. And if you're right all the time, that means I'm always wrong. And if I'm always wrong, I know I'm not always wrong. But if you're always coming like, oh, well, no, you're
Hmm.
wrong, I'm going to start resenting you because I'm like, oh, so you think you are X, Y, and Z. So I know in my little head, oh, that will breed some contempt for me.
Right. And then the challenge with all of this, so everything that we're laying out right now, we're talking about disease, right? Disease within marriage, but we're also talking about these symptoms. How do these show up in the everyday manifestations within our relationships?
So let me just, when you talk about the symptoms,
Okay.
there was a doctor, kind of what you're going at, Dr. Paul Hokemeyer. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's PhD, but he talks about the like things that happen in a marriage, because to me all of this kind of leads into like a not so good marriage. I don't want to say bad marriage, but it's not,
Challenging.
it's an unhappy, maybe a challenging marriage. But he says an unhappy marriage chronically feels bad. It's like a cold that lingers, leaving you drained and vulnerable. So in some of the symptoms he talks about, like severe headache, diarrhea, constipation, nausea, neck and back pain. um, we don't understand that it's not just emotional, it's physical. This stuff will start manifesting in your body and you'll start feeling sick. It's also just like when we talk about how you don't like someone or you hate someone and you're just so centered on that, and that hate will eat you up. It's the same thing like he's saying about the way that we are in our marriages. It can start manifesting itself physically to where you're feeling sick, not just being mad.
Agreed. And it's true. I mean, because look, that it's called catharsis. So catharsis is when you need to get something out. When people tell you that however you're feeling, you need to, like, if you have anger, you need to go and hit something. They have like smash
Those
therapy.
rooms, yeah.
Yeah, they have these rooms out there where therapists will actually take you and you can smash up televisions and cars with a sledgehammer and all that just to work out this anger therapy or whatever. I don't remember the technical phrase or the technical term, but there's even a clinic here like within 20 miles of us right now that I
Oh, really?
yeah. And so, but they have those, but that's cathartic, right? To be able to just get that out, because if you leave those feelings inside, it will eat away at you and manifest itself in a variety of different ways, whether it be ulcers or depression or what have you. Well, same thing. When you have the lack of communication, the disease of dis-ease of communication, dis-ease of being able to compromise, dis-ease of trust, dis-ease of intimacy, or being apologetic or being able to make that connection, those things, all of those diseases will have all kinds of symptoms. It can lead to you drinking, lots of addictions,
Mhm.
because you're trying to anesthetize, or trying to anesthetize, meaning um,
Numb the pain
numb
or
the pain, like
whatever.
anesthesia,
Hmm.
right? And that anesthesia takes many forms. It could be marijuana, it could be alcohol, it could be sex,
Gambling.
gambling, it could be anger,
Hmm.
abuse, lashing out. So you start to see some of these symptoms that are showing up, and you're like, oh, so and so's a jerk, and it's like, okay, that might be a symptom of a greater disease, that something's taken place. And I'm not saying it always comes back to a challenge within the marriage, but I'm not going to rule it out either. It's one of those things that we really need to start to get to the root, because the fruit, you can say, oh, that person's got bad fruit, oh, they're rotten behavior, blah blah blah. But it's like, people need to start to understand, and we, as in a relationship, if you start to see certain things manifest in your spouse, rather than address, I mean, definitely address the fruit, like, hey, okay, we can't do that all the time, but can we have a conversation? Can we talk about
What's going on?
where this is coming from?
Hmm.
Getting to the root, because I don't like the fruit. And that's what it's about. And so I think that dis-ease within our marriages can be addressed, but it always comes back to communication. And for whatever reason, I seem to always come back to our communication workshop that we hold at the end of the month. And I'm not just plugging it because we think it's great, though we do think it's great. Um, it's a free workshop that will help you really have better communication. It's two parts. It's one thing. First half, we do talk about what it means to be crazy, which I think is phenomenal, where we talk about being compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding. Then the second half of that, we give you an abbreviated results of your DISC assessment. The DISC assessment is getting to know yourself that much better, how you have certain preferences and tendencies in addressing certain stimuli that you're exposed to, meaning, not to sound all clinical, but dealing with your environment. That's how you like to respond to certain things that are happening in your life. It's not going to tell you who you are so much as how you like to respond. Once we start to understand ourselves that much better, I think the better we get at diagnosing some of these dis-eases within our relationships or within ourselves. So that way we can then make sure that, you know what, I'm bearing better fruit for my spouse. And I think it gets better all the way around, because then we're working on it. And then here's the funny thing. The more you work on yourself and your spouse recognizes that, the more that they're going to, instead of you trying to get into a relationship and change them, by really focusing on changing yourself for the better, more times than not, your spouse is going to start to work on themselves to also be better. They're going to match you. It's like, oh, I'll see your positive reinforcement, and raise it
Hmm.
by two. And everybody, they say a rising tide raises all ships. Well, the same thing happens with positivity and love within your relationship. When you begin to work on yourself, and it starts to manifest itself in some positivity, your spouse would then also begin to raise what they do to actually help out and try and stay equally yoked.
Just, I was going to say, just like that, cancer metastasizes, positive energy also metastasizes. So you you start exercising those positive reinforcements within yourself, and then taking a look at, okay, how can I make the change? How can I make the adjustment? How do I communicate better? How do I make myself more open? Okay, am I trustworthy? Start being more trusting, and learn how to apologize. Your spouse will, hopefully your spouse will, if you got the right spouse, your spouse will do that. I mean, and it's not something that's going to happen
Overnight,
overnight,
right?
because they may take it initially like, oh, don't placate me, don't do that. And it just depends on how deep the hole is that you're digging yourself out
Come
of.
on, say that part.
So,
Because look, and I think Snooks makes a very, very valid point that needs to be addressed. And that is that just because you're trying, now you've seen the light, and you want to work, like dig yourself out of the hole, like she said, just realize that everyone, as you try and dig yourself out of this particular hole and you're throwing that dirt, when they start throwing dirt back in, it's the dirt that you threw out
mhm.
that's being replaced. And you can do one of two things. You can either let that dirt bury you, or you can move aside, let that dirt sink beneath you, and then you use that dirt to climb out of the hole. Hope that gives you a decent visual, but the bottom line is that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. The challenges, the 4 years that built up to year 4 for us when Snooks asked for a divorce and we were at that stage, it didn't just change overnight. It took time for us to actually dig our way out of that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of there were a lot of tears, there was a lot of counseling, there was a lot of coaching, there was a lot of getting reacquainted.
And,
Just
and there was, I mean, setbacks too.
there were setbacks.
You put one foot in front of the other, and then you take 4 steps backwards. And not that it always happens that way, but prepare for it to happen. Just don't give up and just think that, oh, just forget it. I did this one thing. I took out the garbage like she said, and she's still mad. Or, you do 2 acts of kindness or something like that. When you've built up, there's a wall that's been built up. It takes time for that wall to come down.
Right. And there hasn't been a single medicine, a panacea, a cure-all that has turned a disease around overnight. If you have an ulcer, it takes time to heal. If you have cancer and you go through chemotherapy or have surgery, you do a variety of things. It takes a while for it to heal, for your body to heal. You break a bone, it takes time for it to mend. When you have a broken heart, it takes time to mend.
Yeah.
So be willing not just to treat the disease, but be willing to go through the therapy sessions that go along with it.
Yeah.
So, I know we love our Iron Tribe. We love all of you that are out there. We've made some phenomenal connections with people we've never known before through our coaching, through our workshops, from the podcast, people writing in and what it means from all over the world. And we do hear you. We do see you when you reach out to us. And we want to.
I was going to say at the end of the podcast that we just want to offer a special prayer, and just one of our Iron Tribe members lost their spouse. So we just want you to keep Dorian in prayer and just kind of keep her lifted up. Because she did lose her spouse, and she's one of our Iron Tribe. She's part of our family. So
Absolutely. We've never met. We don't know each other, but we've had email correspondence, and she is part of the Iron Tribe. She's part of, if you consider yourselves part of Iron Tribe, then she's part of your tribe as well. And we just ask that you lift her up in prayer. Her and all the survivors and the people that knew her spouse. So I think at this point, what we want to do is get to the I Can for couples. And remember that what?
Can't get this off.
But this is the part where we're going to pull from the can, and this is something that you're going to focus on for the next week. So, and these are affirmations that are on there, just the little things that make a difference in every single relationship. I'm going to read mine first this time. So mine says, I can find ways to serve my partner, which I'm doing. Can I tell them what I'm doing? What I said I was going to do?
Oh, yeah.
So I told Snooks this weekend that I want to do something new, that every night I want her to pick out her clothes and I want to iron her clothes for the next day for work.
Aww.
Right? I know. I wish you'd have sound effects. Oh, but no, and that's something that I told her I wanted to do. And I think this is just appropriate because it'll be the first week that I really focus on doing that.
Okay. Your mind says, I can accept my partner for who he is.
You guys heard it here first.
I always accept you.
She's going to let me sing on the podcast.
I will let you sing.
Will you really?
Yeah.
I don't want to sing.
Okay, well.
No, so hey, we are so appreciative of each and every one of you. Thank you once again for listening. Tell your auntie, tell your cousin, tell your mama, tell your friends. Tell everybody about the Married into Crazy podcast. If you see the value, if this podcast has helped you in any way, shape, or form, there's 131 episodes. If any of these have helped you and you keep coming back to listen, to laugh, to cry with us, to hear the interviews and learn from these couples that we expose you to and introduce you to. We have some of those coming up as well. But if any of that resonates with you, please go out and invite 2 to 3 people and email us at snooksandlovey@gmail.com or at coaching@marriedintocrazy.com and just say done. That tells us that you went out and referred and invited some people to actually listen to the podcast. And then once we get your email, what we'll do is we will graciously reach out to you to get your address so we can send you an I Can for couples for free.
That's right.
So like we do at the end of every single one of our podcasts, we're going to take the next 8 minutes and 46 seconds to observe silence. Give you an opportunity to reflect upon being a better citizen in this brave new world that we're living in. So that way you can be a better person in your community, a better person in your family, a better person for your spouse, and importantly, a better person for you to be better than you were yesterday and to really contribute in a positive manner. So hopefully you enjoy these next 8 minutes and 46 seconds to just genuinely reflect. Until the next time, be blessed.
Bye-bye.